Briatore in, Oliver Oakes out, Horner out, Helmut Marko taking his job? Nah, that can't be true. But Carlos Sainz in the FIA. This is the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Lots to discuss. But first, here's a quick jingle.
Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Now here's a bald guy and some Indian.
So I'm the bald guy. This is some Indian. How are you, man?
In case that was not clear, right?
No, I'm the Indian. This is some bald guy.
Yeah. How's everyone? I hope everyone's doing good. In India, I hope everyone is safe.
Yes.
First of all, that's important. And
in Africa right now, Buskin Faroes. I've said the name of that country wrong. I think
Burkina Faso.
That's the one. 130 people killed or something. Yeah, the world is crazy at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why we have F1 podcast to just forget about it for a couple of hours, right? Yeah. So
at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can watch it again.
You can watch it on repeat. Just don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah. Take your mom, dad's phone and just hit subscribe from their YouTube channel.
If you're running a Chinese bot farm, yeah.
We do not condone that.
We do not discriminate against Chinese bots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Indian. Mexican or...
What's our first story?
Okay. I think you touched on it. So, Oliver Oakes outdoing Flavio Briatore in terms of shadiness. Who could have expected that?
Well, this was... we didn't actually touch on this last week, right? Because this happened straight after. It was straight after the podcast, right? So we were talking about how last week we thought that there's a good chance Colapinto will be in for Imola because it was kind of rumoured. But yeah, so what was crazy is there was... just if anyone hasn't been paying attention... Oliver Oakes resigned on Tuesday, the day after we recorded the last podcast, and this was straight after after Colapinto was announced to be in for Imola, and after Doom was kicked out. So everyone went on a rant basically saying that Oliver Oakes has quit due to the fact that Colapinto's coming in, Doom's going out, Briatore's up to some shady stuff. Everyone went on a rant, and then thankfully the race. I've been giving the race a lot of credit lately, but to be fair to them, they did come out with like an article with some stuff basically saying sorry, we jumped the gun, which was nice. Say that? Yeah, like Scott Mitchell-Mam came out and said, look, we were very harsh.
He tweeted that.
They did do an article that I saw as well, just basically saying we were, like it wasn't an overblown really sorry, but it was like this was how it looked, this is what actually happened, we're sorry about this, or this is how it seems. So for anyone not sure, it was Oliver Oakes' brother, who's also a director in High Tech, their racing company that Oliver Oakes owns, was caught with a large sum of money in, I'm not sure where, I can't remember. Was Britain. It in England? Yeah.
Britain, yeah.
Yeah, a large sum of money in England at the moment, given the economy, could be £5 or £6. But we're not sure how much he was caught with, but we're assuming it was a large amount. And there is a criminal case going on where it looks like it's fraudulent money, basically, because having a lot of cash on you isn't a crime in itself. But yeah.
Unaccounted money is what the word is looking for.
There was actually, this is a bit of a side story real quick. I can't remember who it was, but I remember there was a famous football player in the 2000s in England, and he was pulled over by British police, and it was like a £5,000 fine.
You the name. He was a very flamboyant kind of a.
But he was pulled over, and it was a £5,000 fine, and he pulled £5,000 in cash out of his glove compartment to hand it to him. They're like, "What are you carrying all this cash for?" And his response was, "Just because I am rich." So maybe Ollie Oakes' brother should have tried that.
What's the name of the footballer?
I can't remember.
In case you guys know, long ago. Drop the answer in the comments.
Hey, just a quick interruption because we have a problem here, which is that for the last few months we've been saying that if you're offended, subscribe. We've kind of been saying that. We've been saying if you're not offended, don't subscribe. It's the same thing. I'm sure you understand English if you're watching this, so you've got it, I'm sure. But turns out 60% of you have not been offended. And I just can't sleep. I don't know about you, Casual. I just can't sleep at night knowing that we haven't offended 60% of the audience. I think we need to start. You sleep okay? Well, I haven't, because there are 7.5% of you are Indians that haven't been offended. For example, I think we just need to fix this. So I'm just going to take a minute of your time to just make sure that everyone watching this is thoroughly offended. So I've written down a couple of things, casual, and you can tell me if you think this is offensive enough. So let's offend those Hindus and Indians first, quickly.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Oh, Jesus, no. Don't, don't do that.
Is that too offensive? No? Okay.
You don't live in India.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Hindu.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that offensive? So that is offensive then?
That's not only offensive, that's going to get me lynched. So please don't do that.
All right. Well, I'll think about cutting it out afterwards. Is there... By the way, 15% of you watching are British, and I'd just like to say that your sports cars now are so gay that the best selling model is the LGB GT. No? Offensive? No?
Maybe.
And of course, the 20% of Americans here, there's no need to insult you because you'll just do what you always do, which is show up after everyone else has done the hard work. So we'll probably cut that Hindu joke out, should we?
Yes.
Yeah? What I'll do is...
I'm still too young to die.
Okay. So... If you have been offended, please subscribe. If you haven't, then tell us how we can offend you and we'll subscribe you. And if a lot of Indian people subscribe, we'll maybe show you a behind the scenes of what that joke was at some point. Thank you, everybody. Now back to the podcast. Jose Mourinho, is it?
No.
Manager.
Jose Mourinho is the manager.
Football manager. Yeah.
I think he was from Chelsea, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the name.
It wasn't an English guy anyway, right? It was a foreign player, as far as I know.
I think so. I'm forgetting the name.
I just remember it was just the police said, "What are you carrying all this cash for?" And he was just like, "Because I am rich." So,
I mean, it's
great
him and
answer.
He had a lot of... I'll probably remember it later.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so should we address the elephant in... Okay, first set the table for it and go ahead. Because I think there's one thing that everyone is missing, one key detail. We'll get to it.
Go. What is it? What am I missing?
So why... If his brother is caught in England, why has all yokes gone to Dubai?
Yeah. I mean...
Allegedly
going to a place where you can
not be extradited.
Yeah, and where you can kind of wheeler dealer with money as well.
No. For in Dubai, I didn't know that, by the way.
It's kind of like it's Switzerland in the Middle East, right?
It's basically Switzerland in terms of that. You cannot be extradited. You can only be extradited for or tried for crimes that you commit in that country.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's also, I think they operate financially as well, similar to Switzerland.
By the way, allegedly,
not of course.
Making any claims.
It is just, it is just a bit.
Might have happened.
It is just a bit suspicious if your brother gets arrested in England and your response is, "I better go to Dubai." That is a bit of an odd reaction,
The very next day, by the way.
Make of that what you will. But yeah, I think Dubai operates kind of like Switzerland in a way as well, where, like you said, the other thing with their extradition is even if it's like an allied country, when it comes to financial crimes. Yeah, but when it comes to financial crimes, for example, they'll only extradite you if it's also a financial crime in Switzerland. And in Switzerland, there are very few financial crimes, which means basically, of course,
do whatever the fuck you want.
Of course, a lot of that has tightened up in the past while. After 2008 was a lot of stuff out, but
God bless Caymans.
Hence Caymans, Singapore, all these other places.
Panama.
Yeah, thankfully I'm quite close to the Caymans. Unfortunately, I'm not rich enough to be, sailing around on a Cayman's yacht. But anyway,
yeah.
If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, maybe someday I can buy a Cayman's yacht. But yeah.
Please do that. And
yeah.
So okay, would you paint the picture of what happened? Because I read an article from Automotor Unsport, and I think they kind of detailed. Yeah, whatever the fuck.
In German.
Yeah. Why should I?
In case you need to go to Argentina.
I don't think they can pronounce my name perfectly well, so I don't care. Yeah.
They don't need to when they're bombing you from overhead. That's too soon.
Germany
what's going on?
Right?
Let's move on.
Yeah, Pakistan, German, not the same thing.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah,
We're distracting people from war. Let's continue.
exactly.
Okay.
Which is quite weird because we usually tend to talk a lot about that. So that's going to be tough to
We're
actually.
bad people.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was I talking about?
I
yeah,
know.
okay.
Yeah. So
Uh,
automotive and sport.
yeah, so what actually I've been able to gather is that a week before Russia, again, we are talking about war, but this time it's precisely because that has an.
It's actually part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a week before Russia attacked Ukraine, Nikita Mazepin's father, which is I think Dmitry Mazepin,
Yeah.
he offloaded all his shares, and Oliver Oaks took over the company. The
High tech, not Uralkali or anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Of high
high-tech.
tech. Yeah.
And he took over that company. And ideally, what is supposed to happen is when you take over the entire shares of a particular shareholder, you have to pay a token sum of money or whatever those shares are worth.
Yeah,
He
those
paid
shares.
zero.
Those shares on paper as well are normally quite cheap. Like in the UK and Ireland, you would normally set them up to be worth like $1 each or something privately held, and it's only when they're public they're worth more. A euro, not $1, but or £1 in England. Yeah, yeah.
So what happened is that seems to be the main sticking point where everything just went haywire.
So technically, on paper, Mazepin would still own it, and he's carrying around cash from Russian oligarchs. Essentially, is what this looks like.
Technically, the transfer of power was shady.
Yeah,
That's the first thing. That's how the whole high-tech thing came into the picture. When when Oliver Oaks actually became the team principal, it does appear that the reason why that happened is because high-tech had its sights on taking over Alpine. That's where drivers like Paul Aaron came into the picture, why he was hired. Where it all seems to have gone haywire is because the investigations happened and the whole shady thing kind of broke.
yeah.
It just came out in the open. It started with Dmitry Mazepin making an appearance in the Bahrain preseason testing. He was there, and he met Oaks quite publicly. I think that's where the whole thing started.
He was a director of or not a director, but a shareholder as well in the bid for an F1 team last year when High-Tech...
It was high-tech only.
High-Tech went for it, but that's why Mazepin basically tried to wash himself of High-Tech before that bid as well, of the separate High-Tech Grand Prix company that had been set up in 2022 to actually go for an F1 bid at some point as well.
Yeah.
So
that was the whole... Yeah, that was the whole aim. So
it had Mazepin's fingerprints all over it, basically.
all over it, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, it would have been fine if there was any money transfer. And look, if the whole thing was not shady, I don't think Oaks would have to rush to another country. The reason why he's done it is because things are not clear the way it has been done. I think the funniest thing that happened was if you've gone through Oliver Oaks the press statement that they released, where he said that Flavio is like my father, and those words could not be more fitting right now. Things are actually panned out.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but Flavio has been convicted 2 times in the 80s before becoming an F1 boss, right? So maybe that's what's going on. Maybe Ollie Oaks is just getting his getting his history in place so that in a few years' time when he takes over, it'll be an even better story. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Again, Alpine being caught in the middle of a shit show is just, it's just everyday thing right now. It's Alpine. Honestly, it's Alpine.
They are trying to be the French Ferrari, and I think they are succeeding so far. Yeah.
It's worse. Has Ferrari been caught in such scandals? Being caught in shady dealings?
No.
Think not.
They did engine cheat and pay it off.
But that's...
Allegedly.
Yeah.
But
even then, that's nothing, honestly. In F1 terms, that's actually nothing.
Yeah.
This is something... Look, ideally, at this point, questions need to be raised. So what the hell is going on at Alpine? Don't they do any kind of due diligence? And also the Renault brand. What is going on with it? It has been attached... Look, since 2009, Renault brand in Formula One, if we just exclude the three or 4 years of triumph it had with Red Bull from 2010 to 2013, it has been, it has taken a hammering in some of the worst ways possible.
There's going to have to be some questions asked as well here, because like Alpine is still owned. Like Alpine is a Renault brand.
It is a Renault team.
Yeah, but like even though people think, oh well, Renault's not there anymore. No, it's still Renault. It's just like Volkswagen. Like Audi is a subsidiary of Volkswagen, for example.
But different because it is
different function. But my point is, Renault owns Alpine. Alpine is a subsidiary of Renault. Yeah. And why it's even more important this time is, for those of you who don't know, Renault is 50% owned by the French people. It's a semi-state company. Yeah. So this isn't like some private billionaire who owns a company that can kind of do what he wants. Like, this is a publicly owned company that like the French people publicly own. So I think there's going to have to be some questions asked, right? Because otherwise, like, you know, I mean, this
has been run so poorly. It's just, first of all, bringing back Flavio Briatore. I am not a huge fan of taking such a call.
Genius.
I mean, you are, but it isn't. Yeah. It isn't. The problem with the entire thing is, first of all, the way the last CEO went. Carlos gone. He's actually gone.
Yeah.
Not pun intended. He's disappeared, and the shady dealings. Take a look at. I think there's a Netflix documentary on his. The kind of stuff.
It's a great story. Yeah.
It is great. Not for Renault, but it's still a great story.
Great story. Yeah.
Inspirational. Yeah. And then you've replaced him with Luca Di Maio, and who has done nothing but make things worse. And at some point, you have to question what is Renault doing in Formula One? It's a manufacturer that does not manufacture power units anymore. It's not going to do that. It has a team that has been linked, that is headed by the person that ran them to the ground in 2009.
Mm-hmm. But he also brought them to championships twice before that.
Yeah, but
look, you're allowed to cheat, whether it's in Formula One or on your wife, once, as long as you've created at least 4 championships for that team. That's why Horner's allowed to stick around.
Remember the option 13?
That was never proven. Never proven.
I mean, option 13 was there.
Well, it existed, but never proved like it.
Yeah.
Hey, and look, Red Bull got 2 as well. Bib last year. It's there. Never used it.
Oh, yeah.
So
agreed. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
And you'll notice their downfall happened briefly. I'm just winding people up now.
Yeah. Cool. Again, moving on from Oaks, let's talk about the basic thing. The switch from Doohan to Colapinto.
Yep.
And the 5 race thing.
I forgot to bring my Alpine hat.
Yeah, and the 5 race thing. Yeah. What's going on with that?
I think that's just to make sure there's pressure there. I think he'll stick around for the season, like especially now because, let's be honest, Paul Aaron was a high-tech driver, and I somehow feel like that's not going to happen now. Look,
something tells you that, right?
I think it's just a case of they gave Doohan 5 races at the start. They're trying to keep him around as a reserve driver for the time being. And they want to do that for a variety of reasons. Look, Flavio likes to put pressure on his drivers. He likes to make sure he has them under the thumb. So it's a good way to kind of, first of all, say to Doohan, look, we're going to try Colapinto out, but this isn't the end for you, because if he doesn't perform in those 5 races, the option is there, even though it probably isn't, but that will be how it is sold, and also to put pressure on Colapinto, which personally, I think after seeing Colapinto last year, I don't think pressure works. He seems to me very much like a Piastri in terms of like whatever. Because remember, he like literally crashed in Q2 and then like 2 minutes later, he's like, how are you getting on? He's like, yeah, good. I'll just drive faster tomorrow. Just doesn't seem to give a shit. So I don't think it's going to work on him. But that's what it seems like to me. It seems like a tactic to kind of just keep pressure on, and also to kind of say, look, we're just being fair to both drivers here,
Does it seem like more a case of the decision being not based on performance but financials?
I mean, Flavio is there, so yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to, because apparently and you're going to see it this weekend when you have Colapinto being signed, and then you'll have a swath of South American brands that are going to sponsor Alpine.
Yeah,
that's what is going to happen next. For me, I hope
so, because someone mocked up a Mercado Libre Renault style. I don't know if you saw that, but it was like the yellow
Renault style.
But it was the yellow and blue with Mercado Libre, exactly like Alonso's car in 2005. And I'm just like, I'm here for it. I want it.
Yeah, I've seen
it's
it.
so bad.
I've seen that. Yeah. It's I don't know. I think whatever optimism I had for Alpine, it's kind of dying the way they're actually approaching the whole thing. Because look, either back a driver or don't. You cannot have a sword hanging on their head all the time. And again, Franco Colapinto, maybe he doesn't feel pressure. Let's say he doesn't. You shouldn't be putting him in such a situation where you have 5 races where you do well or you're out.
Absolutely shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, because you have enough simulator sessions where they've seen how well
Doohan shouldn't have been in last year either. Like straight away,
exactly
in I got the idea of let's give him a shot in Abu Dhabi, but Abu Dhabi wasn't spectacular straight away. You could have easily just said there and then, look, we signed Colapinto, we're going to go down that route first.
Yeah,
and
just do that.
Exactly. They shouldn't have they shouldn't have kicked Ocon out for the last race either. Let's be honest here. But we can go way back. But yeah, putting Doohan in Abu Dhabi
signed Oscar Piastri in on a better contract,
or keep Alonso.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. Oh God.
There's all these things they could have done.
Yeah, it's a disaster after disaster after disaster, and I don't know. It just seems that what Flavio seems to be doing right now is he's trying to shore up as much finances as he can, shore up the price, and then maybe sell the team or do something on those lines. I don't see a long-term future with Alpine.
The only thing that could happen that would turn this from... The thing is, right, so just to put this out first is, the problem is, in most of these situations, what actually happens is, if something just works itself out, and the chaos works itself out, he'll look like a genius even if he did nothing, right? So even if he caused a lot of chaos that just happens to work out, he'll look like a genius even though he didn't actually make correct decisions. Yeah. But the reason for that is this could actually work out that this entire mess, they put Colapinto in, Colapinto does well, right? So it looks like, it was a good decision then, right? Even though they could have just done it without all of this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
So
could have just put him at the start of the season, or even
we shouldn't have been praising all this. Yeah. Renault fucked up their entire engine platform, right, and just threw it out. And then they get a top of the line Mercedes next year with a car that Alpine do build with decent aerodynamics, so they could end up with a top of the range car next year and Colapinto, and it's like, oh look, we're getting podiums every weekend. And what will happen is Flavio will be like, look, you see, I do everything perfectly. And it's like, no, you fucked up everything and it just happened to work out. There was no thinking in this.
Would you back Alpine to be what? I think we've discussed a bit of it earlier, that if there are 4 teams that have the Mercedes power unit, I'd still say that Alpine would be the fourth.
Yeah.
Exactly, because look, Williams is surging and you have McLaren and Mercedes. They are not chumps.
Unless they cheat.
Look, they can cheat as much as they want. They don't have the right people to cheat.
Well,
you don't have it right now. The problem with Alpine is people are leaving. Have we heard even a single person being signed to that squad?
But what I've heard is that Flavio is bringing back Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, and he's going to get Mick Schumacher in there. That's what I've heard. So
yeah, you've heard wrong. I mean,
I'm joking.
Yeah. You've been watching the wrong movies, I guess.
I've been watching the new F1 movie, which is about as realistic as what I just said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's a different topic.
Yeah.
What's the future with Alpine? I think that's what it all comes down to. And
I think, look, at the end of the day, all this is Flavio is trying to get some short-term results to sell it off. This doesn't seem to me like it was in the past, where, to give Flavio some credit, right, which, I love to do.
Yeah, of course.
Like with Benetton and with Renault, he actually did build up a good team, and there was some logic behind the way it was built up both times, right? Yeah. So even after Rory Byrne and everyone left or Ross Brawn left, he was able to build up another technical team. This is very much clearly short-term thinking, because it's like, okay, dump the engine. What's going to be the best engine? Give us the Mercedes, or who can give us an engine? Mercedes. Colapinto might do better. Let's throw him in. It's very short-term thinking. If they were long-term thinking right now, he would be going out and it would be like, oh, look, they've just got this technical genius in. They've just got this guy. It would be back staff.
There's no one.
Right
now, there's no one.
Yes. So this does
yeah.
all seem to me, at the moment at least, like you said, short-term thinking, let's try and get some results on the board to get the highest price, to get Alpine out. That's all it seems like right
It just seems to be that. And,
I'm just hoping that those short-term results include Alpine giving Colapinto the right car for like 2 races to just impress everyone, so that when Alpine falls apart, he gets, a good seat somewhere.
18 races this season against Gasly, if he does well, that should be more than enough. Because Gasly is, again, you don't like him, but he's a solid driver. And if Colapinto ends up beating him...
He's a solid driver. He's just boring as fuck. Yeah.
Again, yeah. I agree.
But he should do well, right? Let me ask you this.
I'm not going to say he should do well because...
I'm a Colapinto fanboy, as you know. But I would rate Albon as a better driver than Gasly, right? Personally. Well, all of history tells us that's true.
Gasly has a win.
Oh, come on.
In an Alpha Tauri.
Yeah, Ocon has a win in an Alpine last year. It doesn't mean anything.
It does mean a win.
That was 21, right? Yeah, but both of those weren't on merit. They were just in random situations.
He beat Carlos Sainz in a McLaren.
Yeah, but it was a different McLaren. It's not like we're talking about a current McLaren. Let's be honest here.
The thing is, he still did well. He shouldn't have won.
Fine.
Yeah,
he has one win. Right, whatever. But over the course of his career, Albon has been better driver, right?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Not at all.
You're wrong. Sorry. French people can't drive cars. We've talked about this.
Alain Prost.
There are exceptions that prove the rule. But look, my point is, can we at least agree on this? Albon is a very good driver.
Yeah.
And when, everyone just talks about, a couple of Colapinto crashes last year. And they're like,
that's wrong.
That
That's
to
not
me
the
is
way
just,
to look at it.
And also, my thinking on that is, sure, but at the same time, if you look at their 9 races together, Albon crashed just as much, almost.
Yeah.
I think it was within one. And Colapinto outperformed him at 2 or 3 races. And that is a guy getting dropped in for 9 races at the end of the season after Albon has acclimatized and had testing for, 16 races or something? Or 13 races,
Multiple seasons, right?
Yeah, just multiple seasons.
The car is built with his feedback and everything.
As we're seeing right now, Albon clearly is a good driver because he's performing alongside Sainz as well, who we know is a good driver.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. I think Colapinto definitely should do well.
Colapinto is a good driver. He should be in Formula One. He's not.
He's a future world champion. Is what
I'm going to say.
He's a Max Verstappen.
I don't think so. Look, I'll tell you something very, very clearly. If he
put him in that McLaren right now, he's beating Oscar Piastri. I think we all know this.
He isn't. Yeah, there's a reason why I'm saying this, because if he was that talent, James Vowles will not let him go. Okay, by the way, let's stop calling him James Vowles. Let's call him Jimmy Consonants. That's the name. Yeah. It's going to stick. We're going to make it stick. And Jimmy Consonants would not have let him go. I can literally bet my bottom dollar on it. If Colapinto was... If he was a generational talent, he would not have been let go.
He is technically still on loan.
Yeah, but he would not have let him go from his grasp in any which way.
I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole
Well, maybe
thing.
that's what the 5-race deal is.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe at the end of the 5 races, Albon's out.
And I hate that. I seriously hope Colapinto gets the chance to perform. My only thing is, all these young drivers, they've been treated like shit. Paul Aaron's career is just gone. His junior career is gone. Ewan's career is gone. And I don't want Colapinto to go down the same route.
This feels very Helmut Marko at the minute, doesn't it?
It feels worse. Even he gives more than that. Look, let's be honest. If there were 6 races in which the driver that you're firing has actually outqualified or outpaced your lead driver at least twice or thrice, he's not going to fire them. Helmut Marko is not going to fire a driver on the very weekend when he outqualifies the established driver. That doesn't happen.
He outqualified him and then crashed at turn 1. But,
Yeah, but that was, I think it was a racing incident, right?
Yeah. But he shouldn't have been in that position. Look, I'm a Colapinto fanboy. I'm going to back him to the hill to win this.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I want him to do well.
I think it's obvious, though, that it's going to be Gasly that will be out after 5 races because Colapinto is going to outperform him.
By the way, what is Gasly thinking at this stage?
I don't know.
He's And he's already had the hair transplant thing. It's not like he'd be really keeping up.
He's
I
gonna
should
pull
not
it out
stress
and
enough.
get another.
I think maybe that's why he did, because he knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Oh God, I feel bad for him as well. Look, they're good, competent drivers, and the team is. It's poorly managed right now. There's nothing positive that you can actually say about Alpine.
The thing for me, just the last thing I'll say on it is, I get why they like. I think switching makes sense in terms of just being pragmatic, because Doohan did a good job, but it wasn't anything special. And I think even at his worst, Colapinto will probably just do a similar job to what Doohan did. So it's worth switching out and trying it anyway.
Then why give
the problem
Doohan
is
a
they
chance anyways? Then?
That's the exact point. They shouldn't have done that in the first place. They should have just given Colapinto, because every indication at the end of last year was just, if it's Doohan versus Colapinto, it'll either be similar or Colapinto is probably slightly better. There's
sure.
So either Colapinto will perform as good or slightly better than Doohan, or he will jump in and absolutely kill it. Either way, he should have just put him in at the start to give him the better
problem
option.
That has happened is, I don't think Alpine or most probably Flavio did not expect Doohan to be this quick. I think that's where the whole plan kind of went haywire, and that is something that seems to be coming out here. But yeah, it is what it is right now. Really, there's no point writing over it. Screw Alpine. By the way, one thing from Tom Bellingham, I think I saw a clip on Instagram. He's 100% correct. That I think it's a crying shame that Flavio Briatore, after probably the darkest moment in Formula One, where he basically fixed a race. That's what he did. He's back, and he's back in the same role. And he's basically had zero consequences for his actions. I think Formula One, there are a lot of things that are wrong with Formula One, and we're probably going to talk about it in the next one as well.
Formula One is a rich guy sport. You're aware of that.
It is.
It is exactly like the real world. Rich people do stuff, they get a slap on the wrist, they get away without any consequences.
There's no slap on the wrist either.
There was. He was banned
cannot...
from the paddock for a couple of years.
So what?
That's my point.
He continued to manage
That's the slap on the wrist. This is how rich people do things.
The thing is,
that's why I want to be one.
Team principals and guys like Stefano Domenicali, they need to be called out. Why are and they continue to get clicked with someone like a Flavio again and again. Toto Wolff, I think I've seen Horner, I've seen Domenicali. These guys, and these guys talk about integrity and everything, and you are trying to, and you socialize with someone like a Flavio. Maybe don't do that, or maybe don't preach all these things about ethics and everything. Maybe pick a lane.
The problem for me is I like old school F1, and this is a very old school F1 move.
Look, that's fine. That's fine. My problem is
I get your point.
It's the hypocrisy kind of reeks. It reeks of hypocrisy.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
That's the whole thing.
But
talking about ridiculous,
it'll be entertainment. Yeah.
As,
what's the next ridiculous thing? You sent me the list, but I can't remember what it is now.
Carlos Sainz Sr.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
it's
Carlos
an upgrade.
Sainz Sr. is... Look, first, I think it was just to set the table. So Carlos Sainz Sr. is arguably... I think he's probably going to run against Mohammed Ben Sulayem for the post of the FIA president. I'm still not sure about the technicalities. Maybe there are some things where he'll need to find a way around, because he's not been with FIA for a particular number of years, I think, which is
and the way they do an election is it's not that it's like the F1 teams voting or something.
Basically,
it's internal people within the FIA in different regions.
More like an electoral college.
Yes,
where you buy off people. So and that is there. So for me, the biggest problem, I think, for maybe a lot of other people is, look, Carlos Sainz Sr. He again, just to set the table again. Sorry. He's intending to run for the position of the FIA president. He's already had a vocal support, or probably an endorsement of sorts, from James Vowles, who has said that he would be perfect for the role. He would be the perfect fit. He should have kept his mouth shut, honestly. He should not. He's probably the last person who should be making this call.
Yeah. I'm sleeping with your son. I think you should get...
Exactly, yeah. And he's the last person to be making that statement. And I'm pretty sure if Carlos Sainz is going to do that, this weekend we are going to see endorsements from people like Toto Wolff, maybe a Christian Horner, maybe a few others. The reason is
if
F1
Susie
is trying
Wolff
to
isn't
find...
running as well.
Yeah, she isn't. She's... The thing is, I think the it's F1 and the FOM. They've been working behind the scenes and they've been trying to find a counterweight for MBS. I think Carlos Sainz Sr. That is where Carlos Sainz Sr. came into the picture, and he's interested. And I think people don't know it yet. He's as big a name in Spain as Fernando Alonso.
He's huge.
Just so you guys
he's
know.
two-time or three-time rally champion.
Two-time world rally champion. So yeah, he's a big name in motorsports, and everything is fine. The big elephant in the room is his
The conflict of interest with his son.
Formula One. Yeah.
The thing for me, right, is I think personally the good outweighs the bad in a lot of this. I think in an ideal world, I'd prefer a person with no conflict of interest, obviously.
Yeah.
The thing is, if we're choosing between the two of them right now, I would much prefer Carlos Sainz to MBS. Let's just put that out there. I think everyone would agree with that because one, MBS is a moron. His decisions have been ridiculous. He doesn't listen to drivers. He's trying to run a dictatorship basically in the FIA. He's just making every bad decision under the sun. And if the conflict of interest is simply that Carlos Sainz might help Williams to win, I'm okay with that. but let's just I would prefer if that conflict didn't exist. However, just before I get into that, if it's just a choice between MBS and Carlos Sainz Sr., give me Carlos Sainz Sr. all day long, because at the end of the day, we need to remember the FIA isn't just about Formula One. It's about other sports as well. So having someone who's a former rally champion, which obviously the FIA oversee, is great as well, because he's also a driver, a proper driver, not a fake one like MBS pretended to be for a while. So he can go and actually, and the drivers respect him as well. So at least they'll talk to him. So I think in terms of having an FIA president who's on the side of drivers and who's on the side of success of drivers is just a good thing all day long. He also is clearly a very intelligent guy. He understands F1 because he's helped his son come through to F1. So he understands different sports. He understands diplomacy. He doesn't like Jos Verstappen, so we can stand together on that as well. So there's all of these.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So there's all of these great things. And in terms of, I will comment on the conflict of interest in a minute, but in terms of conflicts of interest, let's be honest here. This is on a low scale compared to Jean Todt, who happened to be the FIA president when Ferrari got off with cheating. No, when Ferrari got off with cheating, he was the FIA president.
2019.
Yes.
Yeah, but he had, I think, the biggest example of. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Stefano Domenicali, former Ferrari president or former Ferrari team principal.
I mean, look,
but this is my point. That is, for me, those are bigger conflicts of interest.
Why?
Because it's a former team principal.
He doesn't have any stakes in them. That's the big difference, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think the biggest reason why I tend to push back on Jean Todt used to be a former Ferrari man is just this year Jean Todt has come out and said that he's been very disappointed with the way Ferrari is treating him right now. They've shut him out. And you know why they've shut him out? Because Jean was actually a very, very ethical man in terms of how he went about it.
And he was a great president, yeah.
I won't say he was a great president because we still had issues with Formula One. He was
we always have issues. But
the thing
he was a much better president than MBS. It's a low bar.
I would be a much better president than.
I think we would be better presidents. Yeah.
If it paid well, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
I'll do it for free. FIA, I'm right here.
Yeah. It's just that you know who is the best president ideally. The best president is the one when you don't even know he exists. That's what Jean Todt was.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, and that's the whole concept. Even when it comes to world leaders and everyone, a best prime minister or a president, whatever it is, he's the one when a person does not even know he exists and their lives are fine. They don't need to complain about it.
Yeah.
That's where FIA has actually gone haywire. And while I understand the whole thing about, look, for me, why the whole thing kind of pisses me off is, does F1 or the FIA does not have anyone with no conflict of interest?
Yeah,
I don't want to enter. Look, the thing is, Williams' future is bright. I would say it is bright in terms of, at least from where they are right now. If we enter a scenario in 2026 somehow, where Williams is in contention for the title, and Carlos Sainz Sr. is the FIA president, and
It's
Carlos
going to be a
Sainz
bad
is fighting
look.
for.
Yeah.
It's not only it's going to be a bad look. The issue with the entire thing is FIA is known to be an inefficient body, and any call, any marginal call they make, it's going to come out and be perceived as favoritism, even if that is essentially not the case.
Okay.
That's where my problem actually comes out, because you cannot have, and it's going to happen with. Just look at what happened last season.
What do you think of the fact that
things?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
So,
go ahead. Finish
Yeah.
it.
So just last season when we had the flexing thing, FIA let it go. They allowed McLaren and Mercedes to have a certain level of flex in their wings, and ideally they could have clamped down on it. The entire season's competition order or the pecking order depended on that particular decision. Imagine if. Imagine it was Carlos Sainz Carlos Sainz Sr. who was the FIA president,
And Carlos Sainz was in the
driving.
McLaren. Yeah.
That particular decision changes the entire championship. That it could happen, right? And that's the problem.
The thing for me is, I get what you're saying, and in an ideal world, it should be someone who has no ties to F1 directly at all. In reality, even if, like you said, like they have a history in F1, fine. I just think
Richardson, right? Dave Richards, sorry, he would be a better call.
there's some really good calls out there that could be done. I think what he said already about like putting someone else in charge directly of F1 makes sense. I think it doesn't make a difference that the thinking will still be, oh, well, he's behind the scenes playing it.
He's the boss.
I just think, look, the problem is at the minute is unless a better contender comes out, I still think it's a better call than MBS right now.
I agree.
You know,
I mean, it was funny, by the way. I remember I was quite against Susie Wolf being the FIA president. It was pretty much for the same reason. There are quite a few pompous people on both Threads and X, and apparently at that time I was called sexist.
no, that was because it's misogynistic.
Yeah, that time
But obviously this time it's the same. It's just you've gotten your gender changed last month.
So no, this time I don't know what the conflict of interest is, and apparently a lot of people with a lot of followers, they had the argument that they can simply declare that this is the conflict of interest that exists, and they can excuse themselves from this particular position. And my argument has been a very, very simple thing, that in corporate world as well, this thing happens. If there is a conflict of interest because of a blood relation or whatever, you tend to excuse yourself from that position. But when an organization is known and has a history of corruption, ineffectiveness, inefficiency, and making the wrong calls at the wrong time, you're risking a lot in terms of PR disasters. And
the simple fact is as well, let's be honest here, those same people who will argue with you right now, if any of them are, say, Norris fans, Max fans, whatever, right? If they're a fan of a certain driver, next year, if there is a call where, say, Carlos Sainz is in the title fight and it's against Verstappen, in that very unlikely situation, if there's a call, even if Carlos Sainz does recuse himself, those same people will then be saying, yeah, but obviously that guy's not going to go against his boss. They're going to make the same argument. Look, I agree.
Let's leave Carlos Sainz aside. Let's have. We know that the Sainz family and the Alonso family are very close. If Fernando Alonso is fighting for the title, then what?
Yep.
It's these kind of things which makes it very, very hard. And again, he's a better. I'd say a better call than.
I also do, from everything I've heard and seen from Carlos Sainz Sr. over the years, and the way he reacts and the fact that, like, you know, he's going to know this is a big issue coming in, I think he will handle it well, and I think he'll probably make the right calls on stuff and put someone else in charge and not be that guy, because I also think that the way Carlos Sainz Jr. seems to kind of control himself, to me, comes across as a type of person who won't want his integrity, like, you know, won't want people going, oh, well, you only won that because your dad's in this position. So he won't want that there either. So I do think the two of them will act responsibly on this. But you're right. It is just a case of the conflict exists even if it's not acted upon. So it's just always going to be hanging there. And I look, 100%, ideally, it would be someone else.
Just look at last season, right? the entire Brazilian Grand Prix weekend, there was not a single call that was incorrect by the stewards or whoever or the race director. But it was turned into such a mess, such that the Max Verstappen fans still whine over the fact that there were some penalties that was done to extend the championship and so on, but that's not the case.
They called out steward Johnny Herbert for calling the red flag, even though that's not how red flags
not his job. Yeah.
Look, exactly. People are always going to complain. The thing for me is just, all right, look, in the unlikely event that Carlos Sainz Jr. is fighting for a title next year, it's a problem. As you said, there is Alonso as well. But for me, it's at the moment, until someone comes forward who can beat MBS, as an F1 fan, I'll take that conflict of interest over MBS being there. Because at the moment, the alternative is MBS telling the drivers to shut up and stop talking.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the conflict.
Or even end cost cap. Apparently, he wants to end cost cap.
Give me the conflict.
Every time he opens his mouth, it's only garbage that comes out.
At the end, if Carlos Sainz Sr. came in right now and said,
"I need to be very careful with stuff I say."
But if Carlos Sainz Sr. came in right now and said, "If I'm president, I'm going to just give my son the championship," I would still say it's probably still an upgrade on MBS. That's how bad MBS is right now.
Spain can have a world champion. It's fine.
If someone came in and said we're going to put the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia in right now, I would still think it's an upgrade.
No, I won't. Yeah, I don't want stuff happening in the Turkish embassy. Yeah. So,
well, they'll bring the Turkish Grand Prix back. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Little wins.
Moving on to other conflicts. What's going on?
Yeah. Apparently, there are reports, not reliable, by the way, that Red Bull is looking to fire Christian Horner if the upgrades in Imola don't work.
Yeah.
Unreliable reports. Let's put it out there first. But just the possibility that there are people that actually think this is a good call.
Oh, I got called out on it this morning, immediately.
Who did?
I did. Because
you got called out.
Yeah, okay. Immediately by some moron on Twitter, the usual. I started with, I don't believe this report for a second, first of all, but if Red Bull do this, it'll be the dumbest decision they've made since the team started, and that includes decisions like Nick de Vries, Scott Speed, and that get the finger out WhatsApp group to motivate workers. The last bit was obviously a joke. And the immediate thing was a competent organisation would have fired him a long time ago. Your take is absurd. And this guy also went on to say, no, I love Helmut Marko. When I was like, because he started basically telling me, like, it's not about just what happened. It's also about, like, the performance or whatever. And I was like, if this is about performance, surely you agree Helmut Marko should also be removed, seeing as he hasn't done anything except cause problems for the past few years.
Yeah.
It's like, no, why should Helmut be? It's like, oh, okay, you're just a moron. That's fine. We'll move on.
I'm not saying that.
No, he hasn't.
But
he has American in his profile, but Americans are traditionally morons anyway, so it's fine.
Anyways.
Hey, Americans.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, if you remove Horner right now, like, the reason people will say it is people who obviously don't like Horner, but there's a lot of Verstappen fans as well who are basically like, oh, well, look, he's ruined the team. And it's like, no, like...
There are smartasses that think that Jonathan Wheatley would have been a better choice as a team principal, and Horner should have been fired.
Yeah.
What do you have to tell them?
Oh, God, it's just idiotic. Look, I don't want to bash Jonathan Wheatley because he's a good guy, but Jonathan Wheatley would not have done a better job than Horner. And what these people are all forgetting as well is that if Horner goes, Horner also goes to another team. It's not like Horner just leaves F1. Like, Horner's going to be the person that every team except Mercedes is going to think, oh my God, we've got to think about getting Horner right now. This is like Max Verstappen leaving. Like, people don't seem to wonder...
No, this is worse.
Yeah, this is worse. This is going to be like Newey leaving last year. Everyone's going to be talking about wanting Horner. And no one is going to give two flying fucks about some WhatsApp messages he sent. They're just going to look at, this is a guy who brought a team that everyone laughed at to success. You know, and as I've said a lot of times, Helmut Marko's only good decision in reality was bringing Horner in, because you can talk about Verstappen coming in, but Verstappen doesn't join Red Bull if Horner hadn't brought them to success. You think if like Red Bull was still trolling around in the midfield, Verstappen's joining that team? Of course he's not. So like, yeah, these are just silly things to say. At the end of the day, the Red Bull downfall is bound to happen.
Let's break it down into three parts. The first is, should Christian Horner be fired is one thing. Second thing is, if he is... second thing is, of course, he is responsible for the downfall. To a large extent, he's the boss. He's the leader, so he is responsible. Is this enough for him to be fired? Because I think this is the most important bit. Third is it the right recipe to remove the person who actually built the palace? I think that's the whole bit that actually people are not able to understand. Christian Horner has built the Milton Keynes base brick by brick over the last 20 years. And it has been him. Again, Helmut Marko exists. He had the authority in terms of power, in terms of making calls. But it was Horner who convinced Newey to come. It was Horner who has been quite pivotal in terms of just look at the manner in which his belligerence actually.
By the way, some people said it was David Coulthard that got Horner to come. What the fuck are you talking about?
What they're saying is,
are you talking about?
What they're saying is that Coulthard set up a meeting with.
Yeah, I get that. But if Coulthard had his own team, that would be something. But it's still Horner who has to convince him to come in.
Exactly.
It's not like Coulthard said, "Hey, Newey, listen, my car's shit at the moment. Can you come fix it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I love you, David.
Yeah.
No problem."
Course.
Like,
you've been the second driver at the previous team where I was a part of. Of course, I'll switch bases from McLaren to a team that has nothing in terms of a base.
The biggest thing I've heard that just is annoying me as well is just most of the people who are arguing this are Verstappen fans, including that moron from earlier. And the problem with that is like, oh, well, like, you know, it was Marko who brings Verstappen. And you're like, yeah. As I already said, it was Marko who brought Verstappen, right? But the problem is, if Horner wasn't there, Verstappen would make no difference. Like, if you put Verstappen into a Haas, he hasn't won a championship yet. That's not how Formula One fucking works. So it doesn't matter that Verstappen's there. If they don't have a good technical team and a good car, Verstappen wins no championships. And if you don't believe that, then why the fuck didn't Verstappen win a championship before 2021? Like, answer that simple question. So it's idiocy. If Horner leaves, that team falls apart. And you know what the biggest reason why that team falls apart is? If Horner leaves, who is running that team tomorrow? No, we do know. The board. Because whoever comes in as Horner's replacement will just by definition...
They have to answer to the board,
be answering to the board. And Horner is the only person who has the control of Helmut Marko, of Milton Keynes right now, to say, shut the fuck up to the board. Because the board knows that if Horner doesn't get in line, like if Horner's not in line, then Milton Keynes isn't in line, so they've got problems. And when a board runs an F1 team, what happens? An F1 team goes to shit.
Ferrari happens. Yeah.
Ferrari. Alpine up until recently as well, for example. Toyota. Toyota had basically unlimited funds, was board run, never got anywhere. Honda, unlimited funds, board run, never got anywhere until the board left. And literally a year after the board left, they won a championship. Like, boards can't run F1. And anyone who thinks Horner leaving isn't exactly what that is just wrong. It's going to be board controlled because Dietrich is not around anymore. And Helmut Marko's too old to keep his both eyes on the board.
Look, it comes down to a very simple thing when it comes to having success in Formula One. And teams like... if we go back to 2009, 2010, I think since 2010, there have been 3 teams that have won the Constructors' Championship.
Sorry, one sec, the connection's up and down. I don't know if it's just me.
It is. You're kind of stuck. Yeah, your video is kind of stuck. But yeah, I think...
Just keep going. It'll come back, I'm sure.
Yeah. When it comes to having success in Formula One, there have been 3 teams. It's McLaren, it's Red Bull, and it's Mercedes. All 3 teams When it comes to McLaren in 2018, they had, 2017, Zach Brown took over. Since then, it has been a stable management and it has been stable for what, 8 or 9 years. They don't, and by the way, it's not that McLaren had a smooth ride. They stumbled in 2022. They stumbled again in 2023. Despite that, the team continued to have the same boss, which was Zach Brown, and the person below him, Andreas Seidel, when he left, you had a ready-made replacement in Andrea Stella. The reality when it comes to a McLaren is this stability. Then you move to Mercedes, a team that is, I think there is a high probability that in 2026 that team is going to be a favorite for the title. Maybe that team has not. I think that team did not win a race in 2020. Okay, yeah, it won a single race. That team has had probably one of the worst downfalls in terms of being dominant for 8 years and then struggling in between. Has Mercedes gone on and fired Toto Wolff or told him to just divest and leave? No, they haven't.
Well, he also owns the company, so that does help.
Yeah, I mean, he'll divest. I mean, they can ask him to divest, just like
sure.
Ron Dennis had the same thing. And even in case of Red Bull, from 2010 to 2013, they won 4 years on the trot. 2014, I'd say they were caught on the back foot because they had no other option. They had to stick with a power unit supplier, whoever it was. And from 2014 till 2020, they didn't win jack shit in terms of championship.
But in terms of wins, right? Let's put this in perspective, yeah?
Yeah.
In terms of wins, right? And this is where the whole like helmet Marco, bring Verstappen thing falls on its head is the only reason that Newey stuck around during that time was because Horner knew they were going to shit and he convinced Newey to stick around. And because Newey stuck around, they were able to kind of keep a cohesive technical team together and they won races during those years, right? If Horner was fired in 2014, Newey would have left shortly afterwards because the team would have just consigned itself to, okay, everything's fucked. Newey would have been out the door because he was thinking of leaving anyway. And Horner wouldn't have been there to kind of go, right, let's figure this out and build an entire new fucking technical development team for him to play with.
Exactly.
Which means even if Verstappen came in, they would have had no technical team. They would have been nowhere. And they wouldn't have had the foresight to get to Renault to build or to go to Honda, build everything back up. None of that would have happened. And Red Bull would not have any more championships right now.
And tell me one thing. Is there even a single team principle that you would actually back to have Max Verstappen's to be the Max Verstappen's shield in front of the media in 2021 when he was?
Can they get Toto Wolff?
No, they can't. Toto Wolff is in the Mercedes, right?
No, well,
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And even Toto Wolff does not go to the extent that Horner does. And I think there are literally, and 2021 was a year where I think probably the mask came off Sky when it came to the neutrality thing. I think it was pretty much one-sided. They had people that were just pretty much, I think it was borderline abuse. That's where we reached when it comes to the kind of comments that were made about Max. And it infuriated me no end.
Yeah.
And all the time there was Christian Horner.
We both shouted about that all year,
lot.
I think. Yeah.
And Christian Horner stood there and he defended Max like anything. And there's literally, and I don't think there's even a we've seen this happen. 2017, 2018, Vettel, he made a mistake and he was left alone. He was the one who was sitting there shielding the team from the media. There was no one there to shield the driver. That's where team principles come into the picture. They shield the driver, and ultimately, Max was told, just focus on driving. Every other shit, I'll take care of it. There aren't team principles that do that. And even this season, we've seen this happen. You fire Christian Horner, you're trying to trigger, you can say, a long-term project where Red Bull will recuperate. Maybe not. But it's going to have a large impact in terms of whether Red Bull can get back to winning by 2026 or 2027, or it's going to take another 5 to 6 years. By the time, I don't think Helmut Marko will be even around Formula 1. So yeah, I don't understand the logic behind, and I've seen it with a lot of people, that when it comes to Formula 1, when it comes to their favorite drivers, every time it's like, fire him. Fire this guy, fire that guy. It happens far too often. And it's something that infuriates me because look, if there's something that has actually that we've learned since 2010 is stability matters. If there's a person who knows how to win, you back him even though there are times when he'll make a mistake. It's just Formula One. You won't win every season. You have to learn that bit.
The simple thing as well is like this is so overblown compared to where it actually is. Like up until Miami last year, Red Bull had a dominant car, right? So we're talking less than like it's not even 2 seasons yet. It's not even a full 1 season yet. Red Bull still has on average the second fastest car. They've lost Newey, they've lost Jonathan Wheatley, and the team is still pulling things back, getting on top of things, slowly getting around things, like keeping everything relatively stable. Throwing Horner out right now, like I don't get Verstappen fans doing this at all, because if Horner goes, surely Verstappen's gone by the end of the year as well. So what difference does it make?
I don't get it.
Like it doesn't make.
Don't get it.
I don't understand the thinking at all on this. I think like this would. It is obvious that this is just trying to blame anyone. As you said, it's obviously just like they want to just be able to just blame one for this, and not go, oh well, it's obvious that it's just McLaren has done a really good job of building up.
Yeah,
like that's the simple.
Happens. Look,
this is
it's
F1.
Formula One. What are you expecting? Sometimes you have to just understand that. Okay, you have to understand 2 things. First is that teams make mistakes.
Yep.
Second is you cannot win all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think in the entire ground effect era, there are 2 things that are quite obvious. I think Lewis Hamilton fans did not know this concept, and I think Max Verstappen fans do not know this.
This is exactly the same,
childish.
right? As
it's the same copy.
it's the same thing as Hamilton fans calling out like Toto and the team like 2 years ago. Exactly the same. So it is bizarre, isn't it? Because I remember like shouting at Hamilton fans and defending Verstappen fans over the opposite of this shit, and now I feel like it's just you're just doing the exact same thing.
I remember last season there were clamors of Toto Wolff should be fired, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how moronic that kind of a statement even is. But
as I said at the time, Hamilton has those titles because of Toto Wolff. It's not the other way around. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Verstappen fans. Verstappen would not have any titles if he didn't get to Red Bull right now, because there's no other team he could have won at.
He might have gone to Mercedes in that case, yeah.
If he went to Mercedes, sure. But let's be honest here. Is Mercedes hiring fucking Verstappen during the Hamilton era? I guess, actually, yeah, they were going to, weren't they? So, yeah, that ruins that. So, yeah, maybe if he went to Mercedes, sure. But if he didn't go to Mercedes, no other team is he winning a title at. It's only those 2 teams. And the reason I bring that up is not to dig at Verstappen. It's just, this is F1. It's a technical sport. It's about the technical team first. Like a driver brings that last 10% to the table. So,
I mean, in case you're a new viewer, what we've used a quote quite a few times on this podcast. F1 is 90% car, 10% the driver. And with that
10% is very, very important. Like, don't let me downplay that. That 10% is very important.
Yeah.
But you still, like, that 10% makes no difference if you're in a Haas, which is only 50% of the way to the front. So now you're great. You've added that 10% and you've got a 60% car. Brilliant. Like, what
are you going to do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
anyways, moving on. Enough of that.
Horner shouldn't go. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he does, Red Bull will fall apart. Mark my words.
Yeah. If Horner is going, I think that is the first sign of Ferrarification of Red Bull. Honestly, that is the first sign. And once Red Bull happens, you can just forget about Red Bull.
If Horner goes, I guarantee you, Red Bull will either never win a title again, or it will be 2035 and beyond.
Yeah, precisely.
Even if they get a great team principal in tomorrow, because Horner will take all of the best people with him.
Yeah.
And you might, like, by best people, it might not be the top guys. It might not be Pierre Vacher or Monahan. They might stick around because they'll see an opportunity to move up.
Yeah.
But he will take a lot of the unnamed engineers that are doing a lot of the hard day-to-day work, and he'll fuck off. You know where he'll probably end up?
Audi.
Alpine.
No, Audi. You know why? Because he'll try to emulate what Toto has done at Mercedes.
and take a big share in it.
33% share, and he'll become a millionaire.
I just wouldn't be surprised if that happens. That
or Cadillac.
The reason I say Alpine is I think Alpine sniffs a sale, and I think if anyone can get backing to just buy a team straight out, it's Horner. And Flavio and Horner like each other. They could kind of work, to bring the whole thing together.
But he's not in that. Look, what he knows one thing.
Horner F1.
Project, he doesn't have the kind of money, right? He's worth.
No, but he could get the backing. If any team principal could leave and get the backing, it's him.
Not
I think
that
so.
Much.
I think so.
Maybe, yeah. He might go to Aston.
And if anyone's willing to take shady money, it's him. Horner, Mazepin F1 with Flavio as the second in command.
Oh, God, yeah. And on that bombshell, let's move to the next one. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just... actually, I'd put out a post on X only. It was about how the racing has kind of deteriorated by 2025. Mm-hmm. There is, however, a big thing that a lot of fans, actually a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans, they think that these regulations, they have failed dramatically. Yep. But the 2026 regulations are going to be a step up. I think that's utterly foolish statement in every which way. Because, look, what is one thing that has helped Formula One achieve any kind of overtaking in the since 2011? It's DRS.
Yeah.
We are done with DRS next season. It's basically going to be push to pass, and push to pass is ideally, whatever I've seen, it's not that much of a straight line differential that it will create in terms of power boost, and it's not as effective in IndyCar either. IndyCar is just you don't have that kind of a wake. So
IndyCar is also basically a spec series, right? But it's also like a spec series too, right? Yeah. So yeah. So.
I mean, I've realized it sucks because I've been following it this season, and it's 5 laps of racing, then 10 minutes of ads. Then there's 5 laps of racing, then there's 10 minutes of ads, then there's 5 minutes of racing, and it's the easiest job to commentate because most of the time you're not even commentating.
So it's American, is what you're saying, because that's what all American sports are like.
Precisely.
Lots of commercials.
What they do is they just have the timesheet at the top, and then there's you can say the ads are going in between. It's utter nonsense. Why would I want to watch it? There's no reason to watch. I'm really, really close. I almost rage quit last time when I think Palou again won. But it's become very, very hard to follow IndyCar. It's not been fun.
So I shouldn't start watching it then?
No, not worth it. MotoGP. Yeah.
The 2026 regs, like they're just so compromised. They're not going to be an upgrade. And I'm really... It just really sucks that they just fucking got themselves in this silly trap, because you know what? As much as people bashed on these regulations at the start, they've actually worked, apart from one thing, which is just that dirty air has gotten out of hand. And we had the perfect opportunity to just go, okay, next set of regulations, make the cars slightly smaller and fix all the issues that have caused dirty air, like lock down those issues. And we would have had just another 3-4 seasons of really close racing. And instead we're going to something where I will admit something. I was wrong. I didn't think the engine would make as big a differential as I think it is going to now. And the reason that's changed, to give myself a little bit of credit, is because it seems like the other teams have fucked up more so than there is actually a load of room. It's just that it seems like the other engine manufacturers have dropped the ball. Yeah. I'm concerned it's going to be 3 seconds.
Based on conjecture and rumors that we've heard, but the pecking order seems to be Mercedes being too far ahead, and then we have Honda, then we have Ferrari, and then you have Audi and Red Bull powertrain somewhere languishing.
The figures that I'm hearing of what the lap time difference could be are quite scary.
6 to 7 seconds slower.
I'm hearing 3 seconds, between the top team and the next team.
Okay, I'm talking about 6 to 7 seconds from this season.
Oh, no. I mean, in terms of 3 seconds per lap dominance.
Field spread.
Yes. To put that in perspective, that's more than 2014 Mercedes over the rest of the grid. They were a second per lap ahead.
Yeah, but they were a second per lap ahead of the second fastest team. Of the last team, they were 3 to 4 seconds ahead.
No, I'm talking about top team to next team could be about 3 seconds.
I doubt that would be the case. Because look, there are 4 teams
Same
with the
engines.
same power unit.
That could help. Yeah, that could help.
Plus, McLaren, in terms of aerodynamics, I think it's better than Mercedes at this stage. Of course, there will be some difference because Works team is always going to be better than the customer team. So that could be a bit of a factor. I think if we look at the 2026 season in terms of, look, there are 3 main factors to actually, if you want to take a look at in terms of next season. The first is the fact that the field spread that we had this season, next season we are entering in a completely different paradigm where it's not going to be a case where teams would be fighting over a tenth for pole position. We've had, I think, twice or thrice that less than a tenth is the gap between top 3.
Yeah.
We are not going to have that again.
Which is why, I keep laughing at McLaren dominance. It's like, it was one race where they were dominant. Let's not be... Yeah. Let's not exaggerate and make it look like they've had an RB19 all season.
Exactly. And you have
chill the fuck out.
Yeah, but next season the problem that's going to happen is the gaps are going to be bigger. And when that happens, the excellence factor just goes. And that the driver making a difference, it just goes.
Yeah.
It's either going to be, look, we might still have a good championship battle between, if it's Mercedes, it's Russell and Kimi, or if Max moves there, then maybe him. In McLaren, you have Lando and Oscar. Maybe they also play a factor. Who knows what's going to happen there? But the reality is, it's not going to be as close as it is right now. That is the first thing. The second factor is the raceability of the cars. And that's where I think people are going to be shocked what happens next season. Active aero means the wake would be at an all-time high. Because what active aero does is it basically makes your car as efficient as possible in free air. But when you're following the other car, it's
turbulence like crazy. Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it. Third problem is you don't have tools to pull off overtakes. And when you combine all these 3 things, the raceability is going to suck. The championship battle might not be the best. And the third thing is you're not... The people that are struggling right now, that might struggle next season in terms of power units, they might not have enough scope to actually, close the gap or something. And that is something which is, you're basically, and you have 4 years, at least a couple of years are going to be written off. Just like this. If Mercedes has the kind of gap that it does, Mercedes power unit ends up having the kind of gap that a lot of people are speculating. Yeah, that's not a good look for Formula 1 because it shows a lack of preparation, and it shows the fact that we've gone away from the playbook that was in place in 2022, where our focus was raceability needs to improve, grid needs to the field spread needs to shrink, which means that the fastest and the slowest car, the gap needs to shrink. We've gone away from that, and why? I have no idea.
The only 2 upsides of next year is that there are a couple of teams who, even if Mercedes built the best engine, there are a couple of teams that should be able to fight with them, because McLaren, obviously, they will get the exact same engine, and they've got clearly a very good technical team right now. It's not some sort of just magic bullet cheating. They've clearly got a very good package overall, which is why also, they're not going to make a difference in Spain. But maybe touch on that at the end. But you've also got Aston Martin, which has Newey, who obviously can put together a very good team of aero people.
I honestly hope he does.
And they've got Andy Cowell. And the reason that's important is because Andy Cowell will know what Honda needs to provide him, because he obviously led the Mercedes engine project that gave us 2014. So hopefully we get...
16 and 17 and
18 and 19. And hopefully that means we will get... Even if we get a bad field spread, I'm hoping it gives us at least 2 or 3 teams at the front who can fight.
Yeah.
The second thing that's good is our expectations are so fucking low right now that I think even if we get an intra-team fight, we're going to be like, well, fucking this is better than I thought. Like,
he's something. He's something.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to it, though.
Anyways, moving on. And I think this is something you probably are not aware of. I think you have no clue what I mentioned here, right?
I read the thing. I was just, oh yeah, Jorge Martin. No, I don't, no idea.
No idea, right?
Yeah.
So Jorge Martin is. I'll set it up for our viewers. So the topic is Charles Leclerc needs to follow Jorge Martin's lead. Now, what I mean by that is Jorge Martin is the current reigning MotoGP world champion.
Okay.
So he's had a very peculiar career where he was never the I think you might be aware Ducati is the dominant team in Ducati is basically what Mercedes was from 2014 to 2020.
Right. Okay.
Where it has I think it won 22, 23 races on the trot.
Okay.
In MotoGP. But the thing with MotoGP is there are no team orders or stuff like that. So what the team does is there are two factory bikes, which is basically Mercedes Works team. You can compare it with that. And then there are customer bikes, customer teams. So customer teams is basically a feeder series, sort of a feeder role they play, where the Ducati puts a younger rider who ultimately graduates to the Works team. That's the structure that they have.
Okay.
Now, in the customer team and in the factory team, the bikes are the same.
Okay.
So if Ducati has the fastest bike, there are two bikes at the factory team. Then there are two bikes at the customer team. And all of them they're basically the same bikes. Everything is the same. But the difference is the customer team is, again, it's a very small scale operation. It has like 100 people. The factory team would have 500 to 600 people and a lot of resources at play. So Jorge Martin was supposed to jump. Ultimately, he was supposed to jump from the customer team to Ducati. That was the plan.
Okay.
That didn't. Yeah, and in 2023, he lost the championship in the last race to the champion. The champion was in the Ducati factory team. So in 2024, Marc Marquez joins one of the customer teams of Ducati. There are 4 customer teams that Ducati has.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And 2 of those customer teams has only 1-year-old bikes. So Marc Marquez was riding a 1-year-old bike. That was where he was. But Marc Marquez is basically a Michael Schumacher or Max Verstappen of on that level. So Ducati had an option that they either put Jorge Martin into the factory team alongside Pecco Bagnaia, who was the reigning champion, or they bring Marc Marquez. Now, after first 6 or 7 races, Jorge Martin was leading the championship. Pecco Bagnaia was close second, and Marquez was a bit behind because he had a year-old bike. What Ducati did was they picked up Marc Marquez and they put him alongside. Basically, they signed him to race alongside Pecco Bagnaia for 2025. And Jorge Martin was again neglected. So he was going to ride the customer team again. And this is after 2 years of fighting for the championship and arguably being a better rider. Because look, what Jorge Martin has is 100 people, under-resourced team. Bike is same, but the support staff is not.
Operations are really important.
Yeah. So what he does is mid-season, as soon as Ducati announces that he's not going to be signed by the factory team, he signs with Aprilia.
Okay. Who
So in
now have the best
2025
bike, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Aprilia had the second best bike. So he said, I'll go there. I'll be the part of their factory team and build the team with them. Now, in 2024, Jorge Martin ends up beating Pecco Bagnaia and becomes the reigning world champion. Which is, first of all, it's a shocker because customer bike.
I really need to start watching MotoGP. This sounds so interesting. Yeah,
it was, and
because I think up until recently I wasn't aware that MotoGP was like a proper kind of constructors series like Formula One.
It is. It's on the same level basically.
Yeah.
And from there, what happened is
Lester
he won the
I would
championship.
imagine.
Sorry.
Lester I would imagine.
Now there's more apparently,
but less than Formula One, I would imagine.
For sure.
I mean, it is a small bike, so
yeah, exactly. So from there, this season he moved to Aprilia. Now, ideally in MotoGP, you've had Honda and Yamaha dominate the sport. Like they've dominated the sport since the beginning. They've been the two teams that have just dominated. Now, since 2021, there's been an introduction of aero in MotoGP. So you had these flaps and a lot of other aerodynamic.
For anyone wondering who probably knows this if you're watching, by the way, I am not like a driver fanboy in Formula One. I am very much like I watch it for the cars, and then the drivers are secondary. So this is now sounding like something I would watch.
Yeah, you would. I think you'd actually like these things because there's also the aspect of ground effect on a bike.
Okay.
So once you have this, what happened was both Honda and Yamaha, they fell back because they are traditionalist bikers. The Japanese teams, they did not invest in aerodynamics, while the European teams, being Ducati, Aprilia, KTM to a certain extent, they invested a lot in aerodynamics.
Okay.
And they started surging. Honda was last in the championship last season. Donezo, over. Now what has happened is, as the season started in this season, Jorge Martin had an accident. As soon as he had an accident, he was out of action for a few races. And Aprilia started the season a bit off. They didn't have the kind of performance that they were expected to. After 4 or 5 races, Jorge Martin comes back. It's a bit of a rushed return. And again, he had a crash. And actually, it's a gross crash where the bike went over his head.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that happens a lot in MotoGP as well. And they showed it on TV like it's nothing. It's WWE apparently.
Yeah.
So when this happened, Jorge Martin is out for 3 more months now. He's basically on bed. During this time, what has happened is Honda and Yamaha have surged. And they've surged because they've invested a lot in aerodynamics. They're in terms of finances and money, they have a fuck ton of money, both Honda and Yamaha. And in 2027, the regulations are going to change from what they are right now. And again, Honda and Yamaha are expected to surge once again and be back at the top. Jorge Martin right now is in a situation where he's not raced even he's raced 1 race with Aprilia. And what he's done is he's triggered an exit clause.
And signed for Honda.
Yeah, he's basically angling to sign for Honda. Why? Because Honda just won a race in... just recently in Le Mans.
I'm guessing all of this adds up to you think Charles Leclerc should stop having any loyalty to Ferrari and just sign wherever is going to get him the best seat.
My point is, look, he has made, I think in terms of ice cold, ruthless decisions, there's nothing that comes close to this because look, Aprilia is a very small team comparatively. Look, Aprilia doesn't have the kind of budget.
Aprilia also aren't anything to do with the fact he had a crash and he's not racing, so that's why. So it's not like he can go, oh, the team isn't supporting me. It's
It's just the case that the performance clause has something on the lines of that after a specific period of time, the top Aprilia rider should be in top 5. In the championship standings.
And he's not even driving.
He's not there, but there are others, right? There are
so the top riders. Aprilia driver that's not even him isn't.
It's in 10th. Top. Yeah. Yeah. So
ruthless. I love it.
Ruthless, exactly. And after just 1 race. And look, there are a lot of journalists that have said that this is not the way to go about it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is how champions act. They look at positions and possibilities which puts them in a place which is best suited for them to contest for championships. That's it. 2027, if you had to make a pick, Honda and Yamaha are going to be the teams, and maybe Ducati as well. These are the 3 teams that will have the bikes to fight for championship. That's where he wants to go, and there's no doubt about it.
Bring it back to F1 then. Charles Leclerc should basically... What you're saying is that if 2026 comes around and they're not competitive, he should just start...
do it right now.
Sure. Yeah. But you're saying like he should just go wherever is going to give him the best opportunity.
Exactly.
Straight away. Yeah.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest problems with Charles has been that he's run his career on emotions, and it's been one of his biggest failings, in my view. I don't think you should be... Look, if you want to be a Formula 1 champion, emotions, fine, they're good. But at some point, you have to be very stone cold in the way you kind of conduct yourself in these things. And that's why, Lewis Hamilton's move from Mercedes to Ferrari, ice cold. He shouldn't have done that after they've given him six championships.
I mean, if he had gone to a different team, I'd say ice cold. I would say choosing Ferrari to try and win your 8th is there's a word for this. Stupidity. Thank you. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
But hey, the checks keep coming.
It would be kind of ironic if Max did end up at Mercedes, and Mercedes went on a dominant run, and Max wins his 8th at Mercedes. That would piss a lot of people off.
It would piss Lewis off, by the way, as well.
Yeah. He's definitely at the top of that list of people that would piss off.
Yeah. Considering that, I think this is where, look, Leclerc has everything in terms of being a top-level Formula 1 driver. He has the makings of a Formula 1 legend, in my view. His only
Leclerc was in the right car,
he runs with the heart. His only problem is this.
If Leclerc and Max both had equally competitive cars over the last 3 seasons, I think Leclerc would have won one of those championships at least. Leclerc and Verstappen
only if it was not at Ferrari. If he's at Ferrari, he's going to lose the championship by half a season.
I mean, if you say that they both are on equal footings in terms of car and operations, right?
Yeah.
In terms of strategy calls, in terms of like making the right calls, pit stop operations, all these things, right? Which it's more than just the car. Yeah, sure. That 90% includes the operations strategy, everything else. The driver doesn't make those calls behind the scenes either, fans. Please keep that in mind. So yeah, if you gave them equal, Leclerc is beating Verstappen at least one of those seasons together.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because Leclerc is up there. And anyone who argues that didn't watch 2022.
It might seem like a hot thing, but it's actually a reality.
It's not.
And
we've seen the two of them go toe-to-toe in 2022. And remember, Leclerc was fighting with an arm tied behind his back because he's in a Ferrari. So, and up until Red Bull kind of got their car fully together and Ferrari fucked up once again, they were kind of going back and forth with each other constantly. So
Bahrain, Saudi, all these races, and you have.
This is why Leclerc is so highly rated. So yeah, I don't think he should leave for 2026. I disagree with you on that, just for the simple reason as everything's a coin toss for 2026, and
I'm pretty sure I can bet you money that Ferrari would not be winning the championship.
And I wouldn't bet against you on that. My point is maybe,
Alonso. Just maybe a broken clock is right twice.
Yeah, but just wherever he goes, it's a risk, a big risk. Whereas I think it's a better option for him to get to 2026 and then just instantly go, right, I'm out. We'll just move on to the last thing anyway, will we? Because
just to sum it all up, Charles Leclerc, please be a bit more ruthless. Please, 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 please. It's for your own career. We don't want you to end up like a Jean Alesi because you're far more talented than that.
I think ideally
he
should get to 2026. I think he should stay just to see what the order is. I think it would be too premature to jump now. But if he gets to 2026, I think he should absolutely turn around and go, okay, like Mercedes have the fastest car. He should go there and just do a Senna and be like, look, I'll drive for fucking free if I'm not winning a title. Let's put it that way. Put me in the car and pay me a bonus for winning a title. Simple as. Because he has enough money. It's not like he's stuck for cash.
Look, the thing is, the doors close, right? In 2026, there will be both Max and him will be available, right? And if Max and him are available, you are going for Max. It's as simple as that. Yeah. You have to beat that competition. And I don't know where. If I had to, I would tell him just give Lawrence Stroll a call and just go there. Just go to Aston Martin and just build the team around yourself, because there it might work. It's never going to work at Ferrari. I hate to break it to people, it's never going to work at Ferrari. Yeah. Anyways, Imola Grand Prix preview. What do you expect? By the way, in terms of rain, there is a expectation of a bit of rain throughout the 3 days. But again, we know how rain works in Formula 1. It doesn't come at the right time. Yeah. It has still not rained in Miami, by the way, which was, I think, 200% chances of rain. Complete fuckery.
Yeah, Imola. I love the Imola track, like the history of it and everything, but it's such a dull race now, right?
Thank you.
It's not. Yeah.
I won't shed a tear when Imola is off the calendar.
I mean, the dirty air was bad last year, and it was boring. The only thing that made it exciting last year was kind of Lando hunting down Verstappen Max, at the end. Yeah. That made it interesting. But otherwise, it's just a really hard track to overtake at.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Whoever starts on pole, I'm going to guess is going to win the race. Simple
I'd
as
say
that,
who
yeah.
has the best start, because
True. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoever is ahead at the end of turn 1 will just lead the race. Let's put it that way.
yeah, I think so too.
In terms of pecking order, it should be McLaren, I would imagine, but I think this is going to be a closer one than Miami. A lot closer than Miami.
There are two key areas. The first is traction. Traction is where two main important things that matter in Imola. The first is traction zones. There are a lot of them, and that's where McLaren seems to excel. The slow speed section, the slight, you can say transitions, that's where Red Bull does well. And then there are the fast speed sections. That's where, again, Red Bull does well.
Yeah.
There's one major issue, however, and that is the fact that we will have the C6 tire this time around, which is we are going a step softer than what we had last season. So will that tire again play in McLaren's hand?
Well, how much water is in the tire?
Sorry?
I said, how much water is in the tire?
Yeah, or fluids.
Yeah.
So I think that is the most important thing in my view, that if the tire lasts the entire lap and the degradation is not there, I won't be surprised if Max is on pole.
Yeah.
But I think the softer compounds, it tends to lean more towards McLaren. And again, you don't know what happens with the rain.
I think it's going to be very close, though, right? It's not going to be a huge... Like, this isn't going to be on Miami again. This is going to be a much closer closer one.
Yeah.
Just unfortunately, just overtaking is so difficult that it's going to be a qualifying session once again, basically.
There's also this another thing, right? This race is probably going to be the most important one for teams like, I think I'd say Red Bull as well.
Because they're all
more
bringing upgrades,
importantly,
right?
Mercedes and Ferrari, because they are bringing apparently very, very huge. Ferrari is not bringing an upgrade until Barcelona.
Yeah.
But Mercedes is bringing a huge one. And if their upgrade is worth at least, I'd say if it is worth a couple of tens or 3 tenths, which is massive in today's day and age.
Right now, if it's worth 3 tenths, they're fighting for the title this year.
Yeah.
Well,
they're winning it.
I mean, they're fighting for the title this year. I think in some races, still McLaren's race pace advantage could be higher just because of the tires. But yeah, the thing is, as we've said, like, because there's so many tracks this year, where with this new, like, this enhanced dirty air problem, qualifying is going to be so important. Yeah, 3 tenths in qualifying is pole every weekend, which means, as you said, you probably are just holding the person back and winning.
Exactly.
And if you give George the fastest car in qualifying, I don't care what anyone says, he can win a title in that.
Yeah.
No problem.
100%.
George is probably number 2 or 3 on the grid right now.
In terms of qualifying, yeah, I agree.
In terms of overall, I think.
Yeah, that too. I think it's Max, George, Leclerc, in whichever order you want. And then you have the others. At least in terms of performance this season.
The Piastri and Norris, very, very close. Like, not washed and far off like everyone says. Very close. Just not top 3.
Yeah, that's fandom doing fandom things. It's, I think, again, the upgrades are going to be crucial. What happens with them? I think a lot of teams are going to decide whether they're going to invest any more in 2025 or not, depending on how their weekends go in Imola.
Did I tell you, by the way, Spain looks like it's only going to increase McLaren's pace. It's not going to slow them down, because they are already running a 10mm compliant wing.
They said so.
McLaren insist on it, and I've heard it from a few people at McLaren as well as I chatted to someone that I know who is kind of close to the guys who do some of the compliance testing in the FIA. And he's like, yeah, it seems like that is the case. He's like, I can't 100% confirm it, but it seems like that. McLaren are absolutely insistent on this. The reason I find that interesting is because McLaren are the ones who tend to downplay things. So I would have expected McLaren to be like, no, that will affect us, but they're not. They're like, no,
they're
we're already
saying
compliant.
that it will affect them, but their expectation is that it is going to affect all of them.
But they are already said that their front wing is Spain compliant already, the one that they're running.
Okay.
Which,
if that is the case, in that case, they won't have any impact, right?
Which would make sense to me. Well, they'll probably bring a new wing, which will only make them faster, because this would make sense to me. Because remember earlier in the season, I said I think they might be running it because their car was so much trickier to drive. And the two of us were like, it's one of two things. Either they're already running this new front wing and kind of adapting to it, or it's just like the other cars where they've gotten so close to the peak, it just becomes trickier to drive. it could be the case of
why would they risk something like this?
Well, the thing is, they
races?
could have. Maybe they put it on in the first race, right? They had some. Basically, as soon as the technical directive was, initiated, they were like, okay, let's build as quickly as possible. One, they run it, realize they're kind of still within a fighting chance. It would make sense to run it because that way, by the time you get to race 9, you've already learned how to set the car up, all the issues, everything else, and then you come with a new, improved version of that wing and an upgrade package, and all of a sudden, everyone else is now going, okay, we're now playing catch up, and McLaren's down the road. I think with Rob Marshall there and the team they probably had enough confidence that they're like, right, we need to run this wing straight away.
McLaren has never been the acumen in terms of aerodynamics. It's basically the lead time, because in 2 months we are expecting. I think it might be a bit early that in 2 months.
But surely that makes sense then, right? The lead time's always long, so you bring a downgraded version from the first race. You figure it out over time.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to build a front wing that's going to flex only 10 mm compared to the 15 mm, what's the word that they use? The 15 mm tolerance that they had. If they're going to do that, to build that kind of a wing, it's going to take more than a couple of months. I mean, that's what my guess is. Maybe I might be wrong.
You have from January. You have from January to March. My point is,
2 months, right?
You bring all it actually is you build the same wing just with a stiffer material version. Yeah. Which McLaren now with their new setup and their new technical team should be able to do within the 2 to 3 months between the technical directive and like the first race, right? So like they bring that.
Honestly speaking, my worry is not even the flexi wing. In my view, the biggest advantage that they gain is from the way they keep the tires in the wind.
Sure. But my point is, like,
isn't it?
It would account for the fact of they've worked on their tires. They're like, okay, that's our main advantage. We can't afford to wait until race 9 to see how this front wing affects us. So we bring it early, so we start getting testing, and that way, the first few races, all of a sudden, Lando bizarrely going like, oh, this is weirdly, and I've looked at some onboards as well of both of the drivers, and there's just these like weird snaps where the car just kind of snaps out and stuff. And last year their car was not like this at all.
It was very driver friendly last season.
So it's just strange. Like I at first the two of us were obviously like, well, maybe it's just closer to the peak of the performance, so whatever. But it just makes more and more sense to me that they're like, okay, guys, we don't want to be caught out by this, so let's just start there and work our way up instead of starting up and working our way down. It just makes sense. So from what I've heard, they're running that wing already. So anyone at Red Bull who's been like, oh, this, Barcelona's going to change everything. It's like, it probably will. It'll change that they're actually going to be quicker. Like,
they will be. I mean, they will be quicker in Barcelona.
Unless they have downgrades like the other teams have had. But
no,
I think it's unlikely.
I mean, even then, look, McLaren is going to dominate Barcelona because it's going to be baking in Barcelona, and in those conditions, that's basically
unless F1 does what F1 always does, which is coincidentally they fuck up everything that weekend, so everyone then goes, I knew they were flexi wing cheaters all along, and then they'll come to Canada and dominate, and it's like, oh, it was just coincidental that one weekend, just like coincidences in Formula 1 always happen, which, oh look, Oliver Oakes is leaving because Colapinto's in. No, just coincidentally they're getting done for fraud. Formula 1 is just full of these wild coincidences all the time.
I agree. I mean, this was Oak's one was a wild one. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
But I guarantee you in Spain, like, they will fuck up everything, end up out of the points. And it will just be one of those races where everything goes wrong, and everyone will just be like, they were only winning because of the flexi wing. It's like, no, it just happens to be.
I mean, even if they were, look, I don't get it. And I agree.
Anyway,
I'd be a bit surprised if they are running the 10 mm thing right now, because again, you gain the understanding, but you leave performance on the table, right? That goes against the psyche of a team, isn't it?
Yes, you would think so, right? But McLaren also are a weird team in terms of how they think. They just thought about the constructors last year, and maybe the thinking is, well, look, We've gone to testing. The only team that's even close to us in terms of performance is Red Bull. They've only got one driver. We can win the constructors with both of our drivers finishing P2 and P3 anyway. We don't care about the drivers' championship. So you know what I mean? Like,
could be.
It would be a very McLaren thing to do at the minute. You know,
let's see.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll see.
It would be interesting. Yeah,
we'll see at Canada. I'm not going to say Barcelona because I know I guarantee you.
I think a lot depends on. You're waiting till Canada. I think a lot depends on how Imola goes. Because if Red Bull's upgrade here, which is apparently a major upgrade that they're bringing, if it is not good enough, they're done. I don't think they're good. It doesn't matter what kind of flexi wing
unless Mercedes upgrade is really good, because
but Red Bull is done, right?
Sure, but then if Mercedes upgrade, George is still close. Like George is only 6 points off Max, so
yeah. It's 38 points from George to Oscar.
Yeah. The story could very, very quickly flip from where we're like, oh well, Max is the one with the outside chance of the championship to now it's George is the one with.
Yeah.
You know, because George in let's be honest, the third fastest car on average now so far, and that is the honest truth, idiots. Has been right up there with Max. Like he's 6 points off. That's an impressive performance. So
I agree. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Where do you think Imola's going to go then? What's your prediction for top 3?
I'm going to be a bit safe this time because look, I actually wrote the preview predictions piece today only. I think for me the biggest thing is I think in qualifying I won't be surprised if Max sticks it on pole. But the softer tire compound, again, I'm not taking the rain into consideration. It's apparently 40% chance of precipitation, but it's F1. That 40% tends not to happen during the race. So I have a feeling that it's going to come down to again the McLaren duo, either of the two. And for me, it's going to come down to very, very small margins. That's going to dictate whether it will be the start of the race or the final Q3 lap, or maybe even you can say just the undercut or overcut, one of those. I think when it comes to that, those small battles is where Oscar tends to win.
Yeah.
So Lando might even be the faster driver over the race weekend, but I would still say that maybe Oscar's tendency to, just nail those small battles. I think that's what's going to help him.
That's where he wins.
And it'll make him 4. It'll take his winning streak to 4. 4 out of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my pick. What's yours?
I'm going to say it's going to be Max, Lando, George.
Max, Lando, George.
I'm going to say this is the weekend where the Max Oscar fight begins, because I'm going to say that basically Max and Oscar start on the front row. Oscar and Max go for it. Max goes a bit over aggressive, gets a penalty, but it doesn't matter. He kind of works off a penalty over the race. And Oscar ends up in the gravel. And after that, the season is never the same again, because the two of them will kill each other over the season.
But that's exactly
Colapinto
what you want,
P4.
Right? Oh God. Okay. With that, we're done. I think now the questions. Let's just.
Oh shit! Yeah, I didn't write them
through
down,
them as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
You can take a look at the Twitter ones.
I've got 10 minutes left, so we'll go through just as many as we can.
We'll just breeze through it. No problem. Yeah, you'll go through the Twitter ones. I'll go through the one on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Start.
What exactly is a front limited and a rear limited circuit? Sai. How did Red Bull go in their development when it was so dominant in 2023? And how are Max and Lando's driving styles different? Wow, those 3 questions. Front limited circuit is just where the front tires basically degrade faster than the rear tires. Rear limited is, basically where the rear limited or where the rear tires degrade more. You can explain this a lot better than me, I think.
Yeah. So the front limited and rear limited tires tracks, what it means is there are tracks like China, to a certain extent, a track like Barcelona, where what happens is the front limited tires, they tend to consume more grip. That's where the most, you can say, the lag time depends on how you can say the performance is there from the front side of the car. The rear limited tracks are the ones where traction is important.
Yeah.
So tracks like Imola, by the way, where rear limited is going to be very
more power through the rear constantly, basically.
Exactly.
So you're controlling.
So what happens is the grip is finite, and how it is used, it tends to vary from track to track. So the tracks where the front tires tend to consume more grip, those are the front limited tires. Limited means that's where your limit is in terms of performance.
Yeah.
So that's how it tends to, bifurcate between the two.
I can answer the second one really quick. How did Red Bull go wrong in their development when it was so dominant in 2023? It's actually, to put it simply, from my understanding of it, it's basically just two things going against Red Bull.
One thing.
Well, it's two things in my mind. One of those is...
English.
Yeah. No. The first thing is Red Bull, I think, just had a lower ceiling of development with the original kind of development that went down. So obviously they hit that faster, and then they needed to kind of fix things to work around that, which can happen in these. We saw that with Ferrari, for example, hit that ceiling quite early on and had to change things. The second thing is actually just unfortunate for them that McLaren were hit by the TD that was meant to hit Red Bull in 2022. And McLaren ended up going down a completely different path, which they've been working on since 2023. And that has given them a higher ceiling. And on top of that, they were able to hit it a lot faster because they brought in just a brilliant technical team when things went together for them. So Stella came in and started leading the team. Rob Marshall came across in 2023, right? 2024.
No, 2023.
Okay, so
2023.
So you've got Rob Marshall, Prodromu, Nick Holdy, all these people came together. So it's essentially actually not so much that Red Bull fucked up. It's more that McLaren just did a really good job of catching them fast. Because if McLaren, think about it simply, if McLaren didn't do what they did, Red Bull would still be dominating because Mercedes and Ferrari are still nowhere near. So everyone keeps talking about how it's Red Bull threw it away. It's not. It's more so that McLaren forced them into a corner quicker than they expected. That's actually what really happened, which is why I think this whole Horner bashing thing is a bit overblown, because it's actually just McLaren have done a better job more so than Red Bull have done a really bad job. It's just unfortunate timing for a lot of it. Max and Lando's driving styles...
I think it's not specific. Yeah, I'll take this one. It's not specific that a driver has a driving style as such. It's more a case of adaptation to what the car wants. There are usually two schools of thought when it comes to driving styles. It's basically how you take a corner. So the best way to describe is the spoon. Yeah, the spoon in Japan. That is the particular. Sorry, the hairpin in Japan.
Yeah.
That is probably the best way to describe. There are two ways to take the corner. One is you take a U shape with the car, and the second is you take a V shape. So initially it was said that the best way to drive a Formula One car is if you V a corner. Now, what it means by Ving a corner is you take your car takes a trajectory of this way, and then you take a straight line towards the next from out of the corner. The reason why it is said that it is the best way is because in that case the car is moving in a straight line. There is a higher lower speed. There's a lower you can say average speed at the corner, but since your you can say your exit is faster, it tends to help. Now it was initially said that Max tends to V the corner. Vettel was the one who earlier started it, but it is also said that Lando tends to U a corner.
Lando takes the karting lines, the long ones, for a lot of his career. Yeah,
exactly. Now the U corner is where you have a higher minimum speed, but you are consistently working the tires, and that tends to earlier in the earlier eras it was a more optimal way. Now Ving a corner is a more optimal is considered a more optimal manner in which a car is driven. There's no specific, you can say, there's no hard and fast rule in terms of what is faster or better.
A lot of your driving style needs to adapt to the car as well. Like we've seen this with drivers. So like Alonso is just that famous example of he drove the car so differently when he was in the Renault to when he was in the McLaren. So the driving style can change a lot depending on which car you're driving. The great drivers can adapt. The good drivers go to Ferrari. So Sorry, Vettel, I'm only messing. I'm just gonna. There's only one more on Twitter, so I'll just answer it real quick. It's also from Sai. What are your predictions for Colapinto's race? P4. He's obviously going to just destroy Gasly. I think this is obvious. And then,
by the way, Colapinto has won the Formula 2 race here last season, and he won the Formula regional race here a year prior in Imola.
Yeah.
So he's been good.
So, he's very good. And then the other one is, why doesn't junior career success always translate into success in Formula 1? Is it not being able to get a seat in a good team? A lot of it is depending on where you end up in Formula 1, right? Because a lot of it depends on the car and the team.
I think he's talking about Mick Schumacher, precisely.
Yeah, who did well in Formula 2 and Formula 3. This is the other thing someone said to me, what was it? There was someone brought up where they were like, his junior career was terrible, so he wasn't that good, like compared to Hulk. And I was like, yeah, but he skipped Formula Renault, or someone brought up Daniel Ricciardo versus Hulkenberg, because Hulkenberg had a better junior career. And I was like, yeah, but
Hulkenberg probably had the best junior career out of almost everyone.
The point was, like, Daniel Ricciardo, like Vettel, basically skipped a lot of the junior career and went straight to Formula 1. So it's not
F3.5 to F1. Yeah.
Basically, the point was, Daniel Ricciardo was never good. He was a vibes driver. And I was like, and then they were like, yeah, and it's like, Hulkenberg did much better in his junior career. And I'm like, why would you compare Hulkenberg's career?
Hulkenberg is good.
Yeah, Hulkenberg's great. But also, like, Daniel Ricciardo did much better in Formula 1. But the junior career has nothing to do with that. And then the Formula 1 career isn't comparable because they were in completely different teams. Like, what are you doing here? So, yeah, I think that...
Nico Rosberg beat Lewis Hamilton in Formula 3. Make of it what you want.
Yep. Like Alex Albon, brilliant junior Formula driver.
I think there are a couple of things that usually matter. The first is the kind of competition you have. Now, Oscar Piastri, he's beaten some pretty brilliant drivers, but he's also had some middling competition as well.
He beat Formula 2, he beat Schwartzman, right? Porcher,
Oh, it was Schwartzman, Porcher, and I'm forgetting the third one. There were three people. But it was
like, if you look at that compared to Formula 2 of Piastri, is like Schwartzman, and then Lando had George Russell to fight and Albon. So you're like, these are two very different, like driver levels.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, it's just Formula 2, just the stakes are completely different, and also it's a spec series. So like, I know
it's not a spec series.
Formula 2 is a spec series. The cars are the same, is the point. The setups are different, the teams are different, the operations are different.
Every Mechachrome engine tends to have a variance of 15 to 20 horsepower. So, which shows,
But the point is, the junior career, I guess there's just way more variables in Formula 1. So
I think, but the reality is the good ones tend to shine. That's just the case. Leclerc was stunning in his junior career. Russell, Lando, Max, Ocon, Gasly won Formula 2 as well. All of these guys, they did well. The people that tend not to, make it to Formula 1, or if they do, they don't shine. I think Mick is a rare case. I think Mick, if he was given a proper opportunity, I think he would have done better.
I think if Mick didn't go to Haas, he probably would still be running around in the midfield. Like, he'd be a very capable midfield driver, I think.
Exactly. And that's just the reality. I mean, he smashed Zhou Guanyu. When they were in similar cars, and Zhou Guanyu had a much bigger Formula 1 career. So it depends. A lot of things depend on context, right?
Yeah. All right, let's just let's have to go in 4 minutes.
Cool. Okay. So Ahmed Fabli 4133. So first is Ferrari needs to hire engineer and strategist in their WEC division because they are doing well right now. Okay, there are a lot of questions about Ferrari's WEC because they are winning everything. There's maybe a bit of things that are going on behind the scenes as well with the WEC thing, because the balance of performance is something they use, which is apparently a ballast that they add. But it's not necessarily the case. Look, WEC success does not equal Formula 1 success. Just wait and watch what happens to Audi, who dominated. Or Toyota, who dominated WEC and was nowhere in Formula 1.
It's just it's a different ball game completely. Yeah.
Next from Ahmed Fabli again. Thoughts on Alpine? I mean, we spent a lot of time in this.
Yeah.
Because his brother got arrested due to Mazepin's dad connection. Also, I think he said Briatore became team principal, and he's from Malaysia. Hello, I'm from India.
Ireland, but I'm in Mexico.
Yeah, Queen's Elizabeth 83. Thoughts on Alpine's decision to rotate its second seat in 5-round intervals. Sounds insane from where I'm standing, but RB have sort of done that more or less.
Yeah, I think we already touched on all of that anyway.
Or maybe don't.
Yeah,
it's right. I mean, she's right on that front. I'm hoping it's a she. Yeah, it's Queen's Elizabeth. So
we don't judge.
Yeah, it's not. Look, Alpine is a shit show. That's what I'll actually say.
We spent 30 minutes on at the start. I think we've answered most of these.
Yeah. Is there really way to the 2026 Mercedes dominance prediction? Are Honda and Ford going to basically be as bad as everyone forecasts? Also, are the teams themselves over and underconfident about their 2026 chances at this point? We touched on it.
Simple answer is there's no way to tell. But the simple thing is that I think a lot of the leaks as well are from
Mercedes
from Mercedes themselves, but also a lot of people that have been saying this stuff are people that have heard it from like engineers and drivers looking at other teams, and those engineers and drivers would actually be in a decent position to know because they will have gotten a look at what's going on in order to decide where to go. And a lot of those people are basically adamant that Mercedes are the ones to go. So that is where a lot of that is streaming out from. Exactly. And also the other teams who are kind of pushing at regulations give you good insight, because Red Bull wouldn't be looking at V10s if they thought they had a dominant engine. So it's kind of like, Ferrari especially. Yeah. So that's where that comes from.
Next is Libel Lady.
Okay.
I think, that's PCMs in McLaren's brakes.
This is the changing fluid, right? The material that can change under load or whatever.
There's something from a former McLaren engineer who said something on those lines. Yeah, of course. The material could have something to play a role, and material is something that one guy excels in a lot, and he used to be at Red Bull first. So yeah,
I think it could be the case, definitely, but I think also there's more to it. I think this is one of those things where everyone is always looking for, it must just be one thing that's winning it, and it's like I think it's like the suspension, the aerodynamic platform, the flexi wing at the front, maybe some materials. All of these things have to come together. And I think McLaren is epic right now because they have a guy who knows all about these grey areas in Rob Marshall, working with people who know about stable platforms and about this area. Like, it's everything comes together to where that last bit can be exploited. But that last bit can only be exploited if everything else is already working. So just having some materials that like form, that alone isn't going to all of a sudden jump you to the front. Like, so
I mean, it's not a magic material. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. So maybe they are using it, but I think that's probably one piece in a big cog of things that are happening. I think it's the suspension setup.
The car is aerodynamically very, very good. There's less slip, and when there's less slip, there's less tire heat, and that's something that plays.
I also think there's a lot to do with the suspension, and I think that's why Ferrari was so adamant on changing last year. I think they've noticed that this is just Ferrari can't implement things, but I think that's an area where they were like, look, it's a big risk to change. But we're never going to beat McLaren if we don't change, and we're never going to beat McLaren if we do change. So we might as well change.
Yeah. Giving a lot of credit to Ferrari, but yeah.
No, I'm saying they weren't going to win either way, so they might as well just try it.
No, you're giving them credit in terms of them identifying that there's something that McLaren is doing.
Oh yeah,
that's something true, you don't do that.
Yeah.
CPB 1998. Your thoughts on the trailer for Drive to Survive, the movie starring Bradley Pitt stuff? I think it's
it's the F1 movie.
Brad Pitt.
I'm gonna watch it because it's a Formula One movie, but honestly, I'm not that excited. Like, there's just so much in it that I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is supposed this has shown me that Lewis Hamilton clearly doesn't understand Formula One, because he's a producer on it, and they've gotten all the technical stuff wrong. Maybe that's why he shouldn't be playing with setups anymore.
I don't have that much excitement about the movie, but look, I don't mind. I think movies. Look,
movies.
The thing is, the more this stuff happens, there are more eyeballs on the sport, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
which is a good 100%. Thing. So on that front, I think I'm more than happy that they're doing it. They put a fuck ton of money into it, so probably does well, brings more eyeballs to the sport, and the more the merrier. So great.
So on that bombshell, Thank you,
Thanks
everybody.
for watching. Yeah. Do hit subscribe and drop a comment or whatever you want.
If you're on audio, please do leave a review because it really helps.
Yes.
So,
Please
thank
do
you,
that.
everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.